This week you're going to look at the GIS Code of Ethics and look at a couple examples of ethical dilemmas. So in one of the folders you will see the Code of Ethics, and it's a pretty short document. I think it's probably a page or so, maybe 2 pages. It's very, very brief. And then after you look over the Code of Ethics, I want you to look at these 3 different ethical dilemmas and choose one to respond to. So I want you to read the ethical dilemma and then discuss it in the forum based on the ethical code or the elements of the Code of Ethics that are being addressed or that need to be considered in solving that problem or answering that problem. So basically the Code of Ethics is a guide that helps to guide a profession to make ethical decisions. And there's kind of a lot of discussion about what's an occupation and what's a profession. And so most professions, if you look at the medical profession or the legal profession, architectures, they have a code of ethics that are used to self-govern people who are in that profession or practicing that profession. And so while they are not laws, they are guidelines for good practice and kind of go beyond laws, actually. So in the GIS Professional Guide, you'll look at these 4 different considerations. What is your obligation to society? What is your obligation to your employer and your funder who's paying to have a project done? What is your obligation to your colleagues and to the profession as a whole? So one of my obligations as a GIS professional is to volunteer my time in either other educational realms with GIS, and I do that, or maybe volunteer. I was doing some work for Greenhill, sorry, and so helping them do some mapping there. And then what is your obligation to individuals that you may come in contact with as you work? So, but what we're looking at is this idea of an ethical dilemma. And so an ethical dilemma is kind of between a rock and a hard place sort of thing. If I do one thing, make one choice, it's not always an easy thing to consider. If I make one choice, somebody's going to get hurt. If I choose another action, someone else is going to get hurt. So it's not always very clear. You may have a gut feeling about what you need to do or a personal consideration, but that may not be what you have to address in a professional setting. And so here is my high value example. Let's say I'm an employee of the Health and Human Services Department, and my job is to locate housing for people, and my newest task is to locate a halfway house or a recovery house for sexual offenders. And so the things I might want to consider are being near a bus stop or being near a grocery, because people may not have cars coming right out of prison. I also want to make sure that I'm avoiding maybe public schools. I don't want to put a house within so much distance of a public school. And so maybe I do all of my GIS analysis and I find this perfect house that's for sale. It meets all the requirements, but it is next door to my best friend who has a young child. So there's my ethical dilemma. I have an obligation to share good data. I have an obligation to my employer. I have an obligation to the Health and Human Services or the prison system that's asked us to look at this. But then I also have an obligation to individuals. And so that would be the dilemma. What do I do? So kind of struggling, where do I have to consider this? So it's not an easy thing to talk about, and so I've opened it up as a forum so that you can post your ideas, other people can comment, and we'll just see how where that takes us.